Those lights woke me up. How about you, ladies? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session on women. Ooh, I feel like I'm echoing a little too much. Women in Economic Opportunity. I'm Michelle Russo, the Chief Communications Officer here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and I am delighted to be joined by some really inspiring women today. It is widely acknowledged that when we encourage and empower women to rise, they bring up whole communities with them. We know, for example, the positive impact women have on the workplace, in interpersonal settings, the boardroom, and in gatherings like these. And from previous discussions today, we've heard how women bring empathetic leadership to the workplace, how they offer different ways of analyzing information and solving problems. Women are also powerful consumers. They take the lead on most household purchasing decisions, guilty as charged, my husband will tell you. So when a woman's voice is present, it translates in important ways to our markets, our economy, and our way of life. At the same time, women are still fighting for a level playing field. For example, this is well documented and I suspect well known in this room, that on average, women in the US are paid 82 cents for every dollar that a man will make. When I was starting my career, I feel like that was closer to 60 cents, so it seems like we're making some progress, but we certainly need to be our own advocates. Over the next 45 minutes, we'll dig deeper into economic empowerment for women, the unique challenges we face, and how leaders across various industries and sectors can help drive solutions. With that, let's meet our panelists. Their full speaker bios are available on the event website, which you can access using the QR code on your table. Scarlett, we want to start with you. Please introduce yourself and your organization.
Great. It's such a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. I know it sounds like we're coming at near the end of a long day, so appreciate you're still here and with us. And I'm Scarlett Cronin. I come from an organization called the Tent Partnership for Refugees. It was founded by the CEO of Chobani Yogurt. We are very singularly focused on working with major multinational companies, including my colleague Chase, who's up here today, but companies like Accenture, Coke, Pepsi, FedEx. It's a long list, and everything we focus on is about working with these companies to get refugees into jobs and working very practically with companies to do so. And just taking a quick step back, and I think how we fit in today, just to very quickly paint the picture of the refugee context, there are nearly 40 million refugees around the world. These are people who've crossed borders to seek safety in another country, fleeing conflict or persecution. There's an even larger number of people who are forcibly displaced within their country. Half of refugees are women, and just to share another stat to kind of top off what you were saying, when we look at the labor market integration of refugee women around the world, it is not good. 4 out of 10 refugee women are in decent work compared to 7 out of 10 refugee men. So we know we have a lot of work to do, something we're very focused on at the Tent Partnership for Refugees, getting refugee women who find themselves in a new country into good and decent paying jobs.
Thanks, Scarlett. Decanty?
Yes, Decanty Men's Cole. I'm the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion for corporate responsibility at JP Morgan Chase. And I'm so grateful to be on this panel. Really incredible to hear your work, Scarlett. I come to this work at a very personal level. I am a refugee, and the testimony and the work that women have done to make sure that our lives are stable in this country is huge. And how we show up as a forum is really critical to that. And I just wanted to share, because when you were reading through the stats about both refugee women as well as women in this country, my grandmother comes from a very rural part of the country. And actually, when my grandfather went to ask for her hand in marriage, he brought her a pair of shoes because she didn't have any. It's on the back of my grandmother that my family's stability lives, because my grandfather died a few years later, leaving my grandmother with 3 children under 5. And so when we talk about the economic impact particularly of women, not just in the economy, but in households, it's incredibly powerful, and it's something that's really true to my experience and how I show up in the work.
Thank you. Sandy, you also have a very personal story to share in your introduction.
Thank you, Michelle. It's so exciting. It's such an honor to be here today. I am the Sandy Hendry, owner and founder of Minky Couture. If you haven't heard of us, it's the best blanket ever, and you'll get to experience that today. But I'm excited to share with you a little bit of my story and my journey. In 2009, I had a daughter that became critically ill. She was 27 years old, and she was in liver failure for about 5 months. She was hospitalized. And as a mother, you know the need that you are visiting a child, whether they're sick in the home, sick in the hospital. You have a very strong need, obviously, to be there as much as you can, if not every day. Over 5 months, that was impossible. One day I just said, what can I bring you to bring you love and comfort and a little bit of mom wrapped around you? And she just said, I would like a blanket. And then as I left, she said, but Mom, it's got to be a cute blanket. That's why the couture. And so I created I Don't Sew, so I had a large baby blanket out of Minky fabric made for her, took it to the hospital, and when I would visit her after that, I would notice that there were several of the other patients wrapped up in it. I'd go, is that your blanket down the hall wrapped up in those 3 patients? She'd go, yeah, they really needed it. They wanted it. So I thought to myself, there is just such a need for comfort and for just something to hold on to give you something of hope. And so I made 50 more blankets to take to the other patients. Anyway, within a few months, I had people reaching out to me, had created an online presence. Then on my journey, wanted to do stores. People said, don't do brick and mortars, they'll never work. It was 2009, the economic forecast was not so great. But I thought, no, I can do a store. Put a few blankets in a store, and literally they were gone the next day. Put a few more, they were gone the next day. And so it evolved. I came from a background, I taught school for 30 years. I'd retired. I was in my early 50s, and I thought, dreams and passions don't have an expiration date. You can fulfill your dream, your passion.
There's our quote. There's our quote for the session.
You can be young, 15, 16, you can be young. I see, people on the news, 12-year-olds that have an idea. You can be my age or older, and people ask me all the time, when are you going to be finished? And I said, I have just begun, because I need to blanket the world.
Love it.
So how many thousands of blankets do you sell now?
Oh my goodness. We've sold several million blankets, and Christmas, obviously holidays, grandmas get them for all the grandkids. I mean, we're shipping out, hundreds, thousands of orders every day now. And it started with one blanket, and when I tell people that, they go, oh, you really bought this as a franchise, didn't you? And I said, no, I really started it with one blanket. So
That's
dreams
amazing.
come true. You just got to keep plugging along.
Thank you. Jack and T, you help women make wise decisions about their spending. Obviously, blankets should be on the list of things.
Yeah. They last.
In terms of investing and starting new enterprises and building wealth over time. So talk to us about the importance of household level financial stability and helping women invest in a household, and what are some of the stories of impact you can share with the audience today?
Absolutely. And I would say that we don't help women make wise decisions, they make wise decisions.
Good correction.
As you started the conversation, you mentioned that women are making 90% of household decisions, financial decisions. We don't give ourselves enough credit about how much and how critical our role in household financial decision is and continues to be, and also what it means for the growth of this economy. When we think about how we strategically invest as a corporate responsibility team, we know that if we want to change the trajectory of households, we need to target women specifically and ensure that our unique solutions and strategies are meeting and investing in women, and not just changing their households, but changing and transforming their communities. So in 2021, as we were beginning to take a turn out of the pandemic, we recognized the role of women, particularly in communities of color, to do transformative change in those communities that had been hardest hit by the pandemic. And as part of our philanthropic commitment, we made $45 million commitment to focusing on women of color-led and serving organizations that were doing transformational work. And you can see the success of that work across the country. Just in Baltimore, a few miles north of here, there's a young woman that's transforming a long disinvested community. And through her transformation, she's created and drafted legislation that will transform that every block if given the resources to do so. And Governor Westmore recently committed to his budget $60 million to support what we seeded back in 2021. Solutions for our households and our communities, they come from women. And so we're really intentional about supporting and strategically investing in women.
Sandy, as a small business owner, Decanty is talking about kind of solving at scale with economic opportunity, and we'll get to Scarlett for some more of that. But as a small business owner, you're creating jobs for women, I suppose, a lot of women. Maybe that's a stereotyped assumption, but tell me, set me straight. And allowing them to work outside the home and give them flexibility to care for all the different needs in their life. Why don't you share some stories about kind of the impact that your business has created and opportunities for other women?
I realized first when I was starting Minky Couture that I had to make this blanket. It's just an ordinary product. Everyone has them in their homes. I'm sure all of you have several, if not hundreds. And I thought, how can I make this ordinary blanket extraordinary? And I thought, let me think of something creative that I can do with this. And I realized that in our culture, where I'm from Utah, we have a lot of talented women that are at home that know how to sew and can't use their skills because they can't get out of the home to go to work. I realized that it would be great to provide the cut goods, let them sew the blankets at home. They're custom blankets. You can choose the front, the back. Part of my vision was, it's like walking in an ice cream store. I didn't want chocolate and vanilla. I wanted every flavor in the rainbow. And so in our stores online, we have everything under the rainbow, but I wanted these women to be able to provide for their families and feel empowerment by using their talents and their time at home. We have between 50 and 75 seamstresses sewing. They pick up bins once or twice a week, and then they return them, and they'll do anywhere from 100 to 200 blankets a week. And they are just the most talented, selfless women that want to empower their homes and their children. Like, I just hear stories every day like, oh, for the first time they could have dance lessons. For the first time they could do a soccer team. For one mother in 2010 said, my house was in foreclosure, so I used this money and I saved my home. And just the joy and the empowerment and the fulfillment and purpose it gives those women is priceless. And because we grew so fast, we now do importing, which I've had to learn so many things. I surround myself with people that are smarter than me, women, that know and grow, and if they don't know it, they learn it or they find the solution. And chain supply management, and we do everything from the production to the SEO stuff on the website, the social media, the fulfillment, the shipping. do it all. And in all those positions, women have just excelled to empower their families and help them, thrive.
We're natural problem solvers,
We
right?
are. I thought.
I mean,
That's
you do it
absolutely
every
right.
single day. So deploying that and really tapping into that untapped workforce, secret workforce in your state, that's really incredible. Scarlett, at 10, as you described, you help refugee women economically integrate into their new communities during a time of extreme challenge and many unknowns. Your model is relevant to businesses around the world and their role in helping refugees secure jobs. Today's event began with a focus on Ukrainian women, and more than half the people involved in the tent program in Europe are Ukrainian refugees, women refugees. Tell us more about this program in particular and the impact you're hoping to have on Ukrainians, refugees.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe just before responding specifically about Ukrainian women, I think just to pick up on a point that Sandy was making, I think it's really a through line for our work as well, is we are looking at an issue that is immensely solvable based on the fact that we know women, no matter where they're from, are resilient, ambitious, driven. And so the challenge, of course, for refugee women when they come to a country is that, a new country, is that they, on the one hand, may not have the social networks to understand how to go about finding a job, what are the best ways to do that, don't have the same kind of assets I have had in my life to get that support. And then kind of coupled with that, they're also women and face many of the challenges that I'm assuming others in this room have faced today with lower wages, with gender discrimination, disproportionate childcare. So that's the kind of prism that we are working in. And so we're looking for ways to really empower refugee women to be able to, just kind of unleash the talent that they have. And so just wanted to make that point. And that's, refugee women from any background, from any context. But as you point out, of course, one of the biggest refugee crises right now is driven by the war in Ukraine. So there are millions of refugee women that have fled, and the reason it's mostly women is that men have been asked to stay home to fight. So it's a lot of women and elderly who have fled to countries like Poland and Germany, as well as to the US and other countries. And so when we looked at what we could do to support this, absolutely we want to help Ukrainian women in these countries get into jobs, but one of the challenges or just kind of issues we saw was around that kind of like middle step that is needed to get into the local workforce, let's say in Poland or Germany. So we have a mentorship program that actually launched in the US and is ongoing in the US, but we also have it underway that's focused on refugee women. And the way it works is that we recruit companies from our network. So again, these are major businesses. So professionals from companies will sign on to mentor. I'm sure all of you are familiar with mentorship programs, but it's really geared towards supporting refugee women, in this case, Ukrainian refugee women in these contexts, kind of get their foot in the door, understand how to navigate, let's say, the pharmacy industry in Germany or the healthcare industry in Poland, and provide for 6 months really tailored, support. And I think we've learned a lot, and we're starting to see really good outcomes and outputs from this program in terms of Ukrainian women feeling more confident, feeling like they have what it takes, let's say, to navigate the job market in a specific country and are getting into the jobs that they sought after, or I think also importantly are taking a job as a stepping stone to be able to advance as well. So we're seeing a lot of good results.
Lots of paths out of a really tough situation. That's incredible. Let's switch gears a little bit, and I'd like to get each of your perspectives on today's workplaces, what's working and what are areas for improvement for women and men. To the men in the audience, I do try to, make this conversation relevant to you as well. We are all people with a lot of shared goals and responsibilities. We could talk about anything from balancing personal and professional responsibilities to advancement and leadership opportunities. DeCanty, I know JP Morgan has a lot of programs for supporting employees as caregivers and parents. You want to talk to us about some of those practices?
Yes.
And maybe some can steal some ideas from here and take them back to their workplaces?
Well, the firm is a hugely supportive place for women, and as you know, we have a number of women leaders. that are leading major parts of our business globally. But I think what is most powerful is recognizing not just how women show up at work, but that they are the backbone of our households. And also often kind of overlooked is caregivers and community. Like our communities operate on women's labor, as well as caregiving not just for children, but for families. So one of the most innovative things that the firm does is recognizing that across the board, careers are not linear, but particularly for women that hold a lot of the, or burden a lot of the caregiving responsibility. And we have a program called the Reentry Program that's for individuals who have been out of the workforce for 2 or more years. And what it provides is several months fellowship in a specific area or line of business that you'd like to explore, with the goal of identifying and offering a full-time position. And since the launch of the program, more than 400 women have successfully completed that program and been recruited full-time. Just like the most recent stats that I have from 2022, about 85% of participants were placed into a full-time role. And I think those pathways for women recognizing that there are different parts of our lives in which we will need to shift into being caregivers, to showing up as employees, and to supporting our communities, it's really critical to have that level of flexibility, nuance, and understanding of the role of women.
I mean, you hear that, right? People are afraid that if they take too much time off to start to raise a baby, that they're going to be afraid that they can't get back in. So that's really commendable. Do you think that is that a new trend? Is JP Morgan on the kind of front end of that type of program, or is it catching on?
I think it is catching on. We're seeing, a number of things that have shaped over the last year in terms of how we support women, but also how it's showing up, for example, at the Business Roundtable with other firms. And I think as the largest financial institution, we can demonstrate that we can do well by our employees and do well.
Yeah, it's good for business.
Yeah.
Right. Scarlett, let's go back to you. You started to get to this in describing the mentorship program of helping the Ukrainian women get adapted to new cultures and workplace environments. But what are some of the specific challenges that refugee women face that might be applicable even if you don't work with refugees in your current, it's probably applicable to working with people from different cultural and life backgrounds. So can you share some insights around that?
For sure. Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. Several companies had identified over the years that refugee women just essentially were not applying for jobs at their companies, that they'd be very happy to employ refugee women, but they just weren't making it through like the process essentially. So we dug into that with a few of those companies, and these examples happen to all be in Germany, but there are similar examples elsewhere, and found a couple of things, to your point, I don't think is applicable only to refugee women, to other marginalized or vulnerable groups as well, who maybe are a little bit less likely to make it through the screening process. And we saw a couple of things. One was that and this part actually is applicable mostly to refugees, but some other groups too, was that resumes were essentially just getting discarded because the university degree wasn't recognizable, the qualifications weren't recognizable, the gaps on the resume were off-putting, and so it was about us as Tent training HR teams and hiring managers about, I think it's a little bit less about biases and just more about their HR teams can be so used to looking for a certain sort of CV or resume that they were just, taking refugee women out of the process. So that's one thing that we've seen.
So it's education.
Yeah, it's education, and we work very closely with hiring managers at no cost, but to kind of educate them on what some investments or just things that they need to do to think about in a kind of holistic way, looking at refugees as a talent pool. But the other thing we saw was that in doing some kind of research and studies on this, that in many cases refugee women were not applying for jobs as well, and this was because in some cases they were under the impression that they couldn't do that job. That might be cultural, might be for some other reason, so they weren't applying, or for some maybe fulfillment center jobs, distribution center jobs, they were outside of a city where women wouldn't feel safe traveling to there. So then companies were making more of an effort to kind of share what is the transportation options to get to these places, how can we as a business be more communicative and more transparent about that we really do want you to apply, and here are some of the ways that we want to make sure you feel safe in that process. So I think what I just talked through might sound like it's a lot of work for companies, and we definitely see a spectrum of businesses in terms of how willing they are to make adjustments to their hiring practices. But I think the good news, of course, is that if a company is making these investments, it pays off in terms of getting great talent.
Right. So I love that we can talk about these big issues and then really bring it down to the individual level. So Sandy, talk to us about some of the challenges you've had to address with your workforce and how you help them feel supported in that environment.
Yes, I feel like we're pretty much on the ground level. When I started Minky, I'd come from the education background and teaching school, and I found, first of all, the first thing that I wanted to provide for the women that was a challenge for them in any work setting is flexibility. Because I found that when you teach school, you have to, even if you're the teacher, you have to find a moment to run to the restroom. It's like, I can't really share this with the kids, but I need to escape for a minute. I wanted flexibility. I looked around my sphere of women and I thought, I just know so many wonderful, capable women that have brilliant minds, that have been raising families, and they're using these minds to raise their children, which is wonderful, and now they're at a transition period. The kids are all in school. What do I do with my life? I've been, I'm at home, or they have a full education that they've left behind, or they want to go back to school, or they have a year. Everybody's individual. Everyone has a different scenario. So I wanted to, first of all, be flexible with the individual and give them time off if they had a championship soccer game or if they had a doctor's appointment, and make it work for them. And I find that the more I work with them and address their needs and listen to them, and because they all have such great voices to listen to, that it just elevated me and elevated Minky. And we really, within our first 10 years, we were doubling, tripling every year. And nothing that I was particularly doing, but I'd empowered these women just like they were unleashed to just fly and use all the knowledge that they had and gain more knowledge. But I think flexibility and being aware of whoever you're over. It could be 3 people, it could be 5 people, but know their needs, know them personally, listen to them and hear their ideas. I feel like if they have a safe space and a space where they feel like they can express what they want to say and the ideas they have, that once again, the sky's the limit, and they will do that if you give them the opportunity.
Well, you're giving them trust.
Oh, trust, for sure.
And they're giving you loyalty and hard work, and you win a lot in that equation,
out of the
for sure.
Beginning women I have, they're still with me because they
of course,
feel that trust.
So each of you does things to help so many women in your communities and through your work. We want to pay it forward to this audience here today. So I'd love you to think about a piece of wisdom that someone gave you at some point that helped shape your perspective around the work you do, and share that wisdom with our audience. Advice or a piece of wisdom. Anyone can go first. Are you ready? You seem like you're ready.
Well, I'm happy to jump in because I think what Sandy shared is so true about trusting your own experience, and that was the advice that I gave. Because when you enter spaces as a woman that women haven't entered, as a person of color, your voice and your experience and your perspective is just going to be different. Trust that, because through that you're able to build something that is more profound, more impactful. Your perspective is hugely valuable. It's hugely valuable to your people. It's hugely valuable to your business. So that's the best piece of advice that I've received, is like, trust the uniqueness of your experience as you enter into spaces.
Yeah, when you're young and you're growing up, my father owned a newspaper, and he was very involved in the community, of course, writing articles, the editor, and he gave me some advice growing up that didn't really resonate till I was doing Minky, even after all those years. And he said two things: surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, because you can't do everything. And the second thing was give back to your community. You need to be invested in that community and the people that surround you if you want them to come and do business with you. They need to feel that you're there supporting them too. And with my Heart of Minky, I really feel like giving back to the NICU units throughout the United States is just a way to give back. And I thought the other day, yes, we give 5,000 to 6,000 blankets a month, these little mini that go in the incubators that have been proven that the babies smell their mother's scent and they start to thrive. And when I saw all these blankets being shipped out, it just hit me. I thought, for every one of those blankets, there's a poor little infant in an incubator that's going to be attached to that. And kind of broke my heart, but I thought, I hope this gives it just a little edge to want to fight back and to live and to be here. And then I thought the mothers, the devastation they're experiencing, sitting in those NICU units, watching their babies, it's just a little piece of hope that comes through that the nurses can pass out, that I get the warmest, sweetest letters that I feel like giving back. I feel the one that's receiving the reward.
The gift,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Scarlett?
Definitely agree with surround yourself people who are smarter than you are.
I have.
I have too. I do that every day, and it's very helpful. And then I used to work for the Clintons at the Clinton Foundation before I started working at Tent, and I was given advice by our CEO there. I think I must have done a terrible presentation, and the advice was know your audience, and so that's been immensely helpful. Hopefully you all will agree, but I take that really every day to my work, whether we're pitching a company or talking, to someone in the State Department. It's, of course, a very similar theme and topic, but what does this group care about? What's going to make them want to listen, to want to, support our work or introduce us to another organization, whatever it might be. So I really always push myself to do that, and I hope I hope it was visible today, and I think that's been a really important lesson.
Well, that's good speaking and presentation advice, but also exactly what Sandy was saying about knowing each employee, and it's good management advice for our teams and really understanding their different perspectives, and what's going to motivate them and what's going to help them feel secure and successful. And it takes work and intention. So thank you all for bringing that to life so beautifully. So let's talk about casting an even brighter future for women's economic opportunities. There's likely people in the audience today who want to do more to support women's economic empowerment, but they're not sure where to begin. What's one resource or area of focus you'd recommend to help them get started? Anyone want to jump in?
Well, I'm happy to jump in.
Okay, go for it. Let's go down the line.
Yeah, so I think it's what Sandy and as well as Scarlett shared is evidence of this. Design with women in mind. Whatever your service or solution, product, design with women in mind, because it unlocks opportunity for their households, for everyone. Everyone needs flexibility. Once you think about employees, and particularly how do you serve female employees, you're supporting your employee base across the board. So as you think about a brighter future, centering design in for women is really critical and a powerful way to scale and support solutions. Because once again, women are driving solutions, both in our households and in our communities.
I